Well, it all began innocently one night in conversation with Mary, my wife. We were bemoaning the fact that so much injustice in the world still persists in these contemporary times, as though today's sense of fairness ought to be more enlightened than in previous decades. After all, haven't we learned anything? The conversation then flowed into women's issues, and apparently I was not as sensitive as my wife would have preferred. I apparently didn't quite understand the difference between women traveling alone on business and men traveling alone, how most women feel safer staying in their hotel rooms, ordering up room service, while men felt freer to wander a city's restaurants or bars or lounges by themselves. I expressed the belief, to my detriment, that there was no reason really for women to stay trapped in their hotel rooms, stuck with room service, a book, or TV. The women's movement had liberated all of us, and we were all now on equal footing. Well, think about it, she said. The average man is about 6 to 8 inches taller than the average woman, and mostly a whole lot stronger. How would that make you feel? And so I tried to imagine what it would be like if most of the women I bumped into during the course of a day measured about 6'6" or 6'8", and they were physically stronger. I would never leave my hotel room, I can tell you that. So I got to thinking that if women towered over guys with a menacing presence, I don't think men would have the audacity to deprive them of their reproductive rights. I think the Equal Rights Amendment would have easily have passed, and Clarence Thomas might have revealed a different demeanor towards Anita Hill. The world looked and felt unbelievably different with the thought of women being at least a head taller than I. Essentially, I reimagined the world, and thus, not only does the topography change, but so too do human relations. Now, earlier this spring, Union Theological Seminary held a conference called Christianity and the U.S. Crisis. The president of Union Seminary, Dr. Serena Jones, asserted that we have misplaced the ruler we use to measure what matters most in life. I kind of like that line. We've misplaced the ruler that we use to measure what matters most in life. And her comment framed the conference, which grappled with issues of greed, injustice, environmental deterioration, and the church's failure to change society into a more equitable and sustainable and moral climate. One of the participants was Cornel West from Princeton University. And at the conference, he discussed how we needed to feel, how we needed to really feel things before any change in society could take place. He said it's okay to think critically about matters, but what lies at rock bottom is feeling it. Issues have to be felt. Conflicts have to be felt before we think it worthwhile enough to struggle to change them. Now, I think we resonate with this humble yet astute observation about how things are and how things change. After all, it's only by feeling it in our guts that we can reimagine the world to include others. Now, let me share a graphic example of what I mean. As many of us know, Utah's Attorney General, Mark Shurtleff, went through a rather aggressive treatment for colon cancer last year. Mr. Shurtleff, a man who wears his conservative politics on his sleeve and is typically against anything and everything, and wants to save our nation from the moral depravity perpetuated by liberals, well, this Mr. Shurtleff made a startling announcement. Having suffered the brutal side effects of chemotherapy, he said, "You can't stop throwing up because you can't keep the nausea pills down. The tablets do not work." Thus, having felt what it was like, he said that he would support the liberal agenda of legalizing marijuana for medicinal purposes. He felt it, okay? He felt it. And then he could reimagine the world. Issues have to be felt. Conflicts have to be felt before anything can change. Undoubtedly, the foundation of human rights rests with the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's an invitation to feel it from the perspective of the other. When during the Republican presidential debate a few weeks ago, some cheers emerged from the prospect of letting a 30-year-old man die in the hospital waiting room because he had no health insurance, you'd want to ask these righteous people if they even had the capacity to feel. Would you really want to be treated in the same manner as you regard others? Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can choose health care, immigration, unemployment benefits, marriage equality, medicinal marijuana. Can you feel any of it and change your mind accordingly? At the Parliament of World Religions, 1993, 143 leaders of the world's major faiths signed on to the Golden Rule. That basic. They signed on to the Golden Rule. This was the version they all agreed upon. We must treat others as we wish others to treat us. The faiths that signed on went from Baha'i to New Pagan, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Native American, even Unitarian Universalists. Reimagine the world where we treat all others, not just those in our in-group. We treat all others as we ourselves wish to be treated. Can you feel it? Can you feel what it would be like to have your civil rights restricted because of whom you love? This is what we do unto others. Is that the treatment that we would want for ourselves? You know, there's another biblical verse, Leviticus 19:34, which is written in order for us to feel it. It goes like this. The stranger that sojourneth with you shall be unto you as the homeborn among you, and you shall love the stranger as yourself, for you too have been strangers in the land of Egypt. So this verse might as well say, you have felt what it was like being an outcast in a faraway place, and thus you must feel for the stranger who is in your midst. You know what it feels like. So reimagine the world to be just a little more fair. Now, if we recognize the common humanity that pulses through the veins of all people, then, as the novelist Cynthia Ozick puts it, doctors can imagine what it is to be patients. Those who have no pain can imagine those who suffer. Those at the center can imagine those on the outside. The strong can imagine what it is to be weak. Illuminated lives can imagine the dark. And we strangers can imagine the familiar hearts of one another.